Seriously though, it's basically a giant sperm. The whole thing is a giant sperm.
Wait, what are we talking about, Chris? Context?
That right there, the crucible.
Oh, the Crucible. Yeah.
Sorry, I was crafting in Guild Wars 2. I didn't hear what.
The Crucible. Is that what it looked like? I thought it kind of looked like a maraca.
It's also kind of a giant phallus. It's all of that.
Bong.
A bong. It's a space bong. You're gonna invite the Reapers over.
Get them super
some
stoned, and then send them out to deep space.
Dude,
you need to see
I am
deep
so
space.
hungry.
It's like you need to see deep space. It's like so deep, man.
Hell of a show down there.
You know?
Just like
There's like so much space. You'd so blow your mind.
Your ass out of the fire.
That's actually an interesting idea.
I was the one with bullets for
I
it.
want to
Wait,
point
what?
something out here.
The moral support to
Let Josh talk first.
So Rex wants to talk about this in private. And he's 8 feet away from the guy he doesn't want to overhear.
We've heard rumors.
Okay. Yeah, just whispering is gonna save you this trouble. We couldn't just go to another room. That would be too much, and we'd also have to animate you walking.
Rex, you realize that this is a spaceship and the walls are made of metal? Does the word acoustics mean anything on your planet?
You give the word, and they'll meet you there.
I'll see what I can do.
Get on it, Shepard.
How could there be trouble
So-
with the Rachni?
Never mind. I was gonna go off on a crazy tangent.
They can't be back.
No,
like
by all
crazy
means.
tangents.
I don't get it.
I was just thinking, what do all these different races? What would that do to, like, since you brought up bongs, the drug trade in space? Like, are there different animals that are, or different species that are immune to different drugs, and therefore would be more likely to produce and manufacture since they can't really use themselves and they just sell it to humans? Are wealthy, species more likely to be consumers of those drugs?
You know what would be awesome? You know how here on Earth there's a kind of toad, if you lick it, it's a major, it's like dropping LSD. What if there was a race in the game that had that stuff on their skin, so that if you ever kissed one, you would get so high?
What if it was the Krogans?
Yeah. And Krogan licking would be this thing.
And whenever you're walking through a major town, someone just walks over and like licks Rex and runs away.
The Krogan.
And you're like, fucking hippies.
Down on Tuchanka.
Yeah, you can't speak in front of the Krogan, so we're speaking, 3 meters away from the Krogan.
We're
not even whispering in this
I'll only
cave.
speak slightly behind it, adjacent to the Krogan.
But it's vital they be rescued. They must complete their original.
But yeah, what would happen? Would there be races that just can't tolerate any sort of inebriation? You make their brain malfunction and they just die.
Do what I can.
Or is this something universal to all sapiens? Is they've all got something they can ingest to make their brain malfunction in a way that's entertaining to them?
You said their mission was
The thing is, Mass Effect asks these questions quite a bit.
I'm sorry.
There are a lot of sort of interesting explorations of alien issues in Mass Effect, and I guess it's just maybe they figure that by now they've already explored everything they have to explore. Like, when was the last time the Galactopedia or whatever was relevant in this game? What's it called?
Codex?
The commander is Lieutenant.
The Codex, yeah.
He'll be your contact.
The Codex is used at this point primarily for exposition. This is what a husk is.
I needed
Oh,
someone
and
to
for
trust.
offloading
That's all.
spackle for filling in plot hole. That's where they keep all their plot hole patches, is in the Codex. Which is frustrating since sometimes they contradict. I don't actually know of any that contradict each other, but I see people talking about this Codex entry in Mass Effect 2 conflicts with this one in Mass Effect 3. And, you can have different people in the world disagree on certain events, but your Codex ought to agree with itself. But I don't know. I don't know of any specifically that I can cite. But I think that is interesting.
I don't know, Star Trek sort of focused on cultural differences more than biological differences, although biological differences occasionally came up, and Mass Effect takes it one further by having not just humanoid, but like radically different, look at Turians versus, Asari versus Krogans versus humans versus, I don't know, those... There are lots of interesting physiological things.
Asari versus humans. There's some major differences.
Yeah.
Asari only looks like half our species. But yeah, there's
Sorry,
a whole
only
thing
looks
where
like
they
a really sexy version of half of our species.
They also have tentacles for hair.
But other people, yeah, well, other people justify. This is something I've been wanting to work in for a while. Other people have the Galaxy hand waves this a bit by saying everybody
Wait.
sees the Asari the way that they like. Are you gonna interrupt me, you son of a bitch?
Are you okay?
Is Morden trying to set up Garrus with Eve here?
Careful, or put any faith in someone.
That's what it sounded like to me.
This one.
That's the
Eve
OTP.
Garrus,
I mean,
OTP.
Is he? What's
God
that?
damn.
Simple blood test.
ha!
What kind?
But if we see the Asari the way we want to see the Asari, then playing as FemShep, shouldn't you see Asari as a giant oiled muscle man?
Is that
Don't you
really
know
the
that all
formal
video game female
explanation?
protagonists are lesbians?
Yeah, Chris, it is a bit like people allude to it, but it's done in this sort of gutless. Well, a couple people say it, so you can interpret it that way, but really you're not supposed
That
to think
doesn't
about
make
it
any
because here's
sense,
space
though.
tits.
She gets hurt.
Because
Feel it.
the Asari don't look that human. I mean, they look humanoid, obviously, but they're blue and have tentacles for heads.
You got a quad. Doctor.
That's not
But
really
everybody has the hots
superhuman
for-
there.
Our female.
And really this, I mean, I'm usually praising the first game, but here is one place where the first game kind of left left us painted into this corner where you obviously had these this species in here for fan service so that we could have our space tits. And then when you try and expand on them and describe their culture or how they mate, it all sort of goes sideways on you.
So I do like that that despite the fact that Morden is 100% working on fixing the genophage and he was Rex's informant in the first place, they still don't really get along and Rex is still really suspicious.
The day I became a shaman at the
Yeah,
I'm
it
glad
feeds
they
into what I
kind of
was
kept
saying.
that kind of like that degree of
but perhaps one day,
suspicion
when
and
this is
conflict
over,
there, because
we
it doesn't
can
make
know.
a whole lot of sense for Rex, who's like what 1,000 years old, to just give up on that prejudice so easily.
Yeah, no, and that's also allows him to write what BioWare is best at writing, which is bickering.
And the genophage has
Well,
made
bickering
yeah.
and banter,
Banter.
and also
Banter.
surrendered to despair. A few of us
it makes sense for both characters, and that is the game's strongest point. Watching Rex and Morden sort of fight back and forth with all of the historical universe reasons for them to not like each other, their own personal histories with one another, and the complicated backstories for both of them, that's interesting. And then we basically don't spend a lot of the game focusing on that really interesting, well-written piece, and instead say, let's go fight some Reapers that don't have personalities or identities or any sort of character whatsoever.
If you don't mind me asking.
I kind of want to move back to what Seamus was talking about, like, you know, the Asari there for space tits, and like,
they would wander off
I
to the
never
wasteland,
really
hoping a thresher moth
articulated
would
this
kill them
clearly in my
and
own
lead them to
head,
torment.
because I always kind of felt like, you know, the Asari have always really left a bad taste in my mouth, you know? They always really do, they do have this definite, like, feel of they were just included in for kind of a juvenile fan servicey thing, where it's like, it's these sexy Asari ladies who, like, you know, will totally get it on with your character, if he's male,
Yes.
and who are attracted
and-
by all the dudes in the universe.
And who mostly were, despite being thousands of years old. I mean, think about how many PhDs would you have by the time you hit 300 years old? And what are they all doing? They're table dancing. They're strippers.
They're strippers. They're like, you know, having sex with men of every species and women. Because, you know, it's they're sexy ladies, but they don't discriminate. They'll also have sex with the women, with the sexy women.
Excuses to earn them.
And it just, you know, but I always felt like, I guess I always felt like I wasn't allowed to make that hasty a judgment, like, oh, look, they're giving it all this characterization here. Oh, look, they really expand on the purpose of the Asari in the novels. Oh, yeah. But, no,
Oh, please
you
don't
know,
bring up
at
the
the end of the
novel.
day, none of that stuff really sits right with me. They do feel like they were just thrown in for sex appeal on a very sort of unconscious, but like not even on a direct level, just on sort of an unthinking game design level, like of, oh, we kind of want to do this in the game, and it just turns out when you put all the pieces of this together, it represents a we want more space tits in the game.
It's my pleasure, Commander.
And that really doesn't sit right with me.
I'm more bothered by the whole they appear as you want them to appear, because that really sets up this male normative thing where, like, of course they're attractive chicks with boobs, because that's what every human wants people to be, right? And it's really male normative and creepy if that's the explanation of how they appear so sexy. Like, I was more comfortable with, like, it's an all-female species, and they're vaguely humanoid, and then just leave it at that. But no, apparently it's different, and that creeps me out.
Never change mind.
Yeah. I was actually, that's the word I wanted to use, male normative. But, you know, the problem is that whenever you use a word with, like, normative, or directly referencing sexual tropes, then of course gamers get angry at you. Because you can't have an actual serious discussion using a serious vocabulary that points to the clear and distinct sexism in this media, because then you're one of the feminazis.
Rutskarn,
you were just about to say he was nerd normative.
But not about them.
Okay, we'll settle on pun nerd normative.
To prove I can.
So,
oh yeah, video game. What are we doing?
I've been a bit bothered playing this game that
something soft. Prefer to let her recover fully.
There's a whole lot in, well, okay, so look, it's Mass Effect, your choices don't matter. But
her opinion,
more specifically, suddenly Mordin really wants to cure the genophage, and he's going, like, seriously out of his way to do this. Like, way out of his way, informing the Krogan, basically betraying his own people.
She said, please.
It's done in a way that makes sense, though. I mean, he sees it as a pragmatic response to
I guess,
the Reapers.
Yeah.
In Mass Effect 2, he was super against the idea of curing the genophage.
Until Reapers dealt with at least.
Right.
Thought it was the right thing to do.
And you had to, like, really force the issue with him for him to rethink it.
Mistakes.
Well, that's the thing about Mordin is, I always saw Mordin as a pragmatist. Like, the reason he did this horrible, horrible thing wasn't because he hates Krogans, or because he's a meanie racist, or because he's Hitler. It's because he thought it was a sensible solution to a real problem. So now
it was the lesser of two evils.
Yeah. So now we've got the Reapers, and it probably does pain him, and maybe they could have focused a little more on this, but now he sees reversing the genophage as a sensible solution to a real problem. Although, I mean, that still raises the issue of whether or not an army of Krogan actually is useful against space monsters, but...
Yeah. Well, and the game plays it so loose with this. I mean, we're gathering up war assets. We need to cure the genophage to get the Turians on board. Or to get the Krogan on board so that the ones that are alive right now will agree to help with this other problem, so that the Turians will agree to help us on Earth. And it creates this big chain, but it's never really clear, like, well, wait, are we gathering up assets for building the Crucible, or is this for retaking Earth? And we're in the center of taking these actions, but we're not really in the loop. It's this odd thing where you don't understand how things work, but you're the one making all the decisions. Which I think is very odd.
So how bad should we make our armor look? Because we're down here and I'm setting it up.
Have you've seen that thing about female armor in video games, right?
No.
I've never heard anybody discuss that subject before.
There's an article, and I'll link it so Seamus can link it in the video later, about armor design, and he actually cites Mass Effect as a pretty good example of basically you want to have a balance between something being functional and something being a power fantasy. You don't want something so, you know, power fantasy-y that it becomes dangerous. The guy in the article uses an example where he shows you a boob plate, which is like a breastplate, but designed to just cut boobs and leave a crevice for cleavage. And he said, like, and this is something he actually fashioned out of metal for a woman. And he said that he's constantly worried she's gonna. Yes, that article. And he's constantly worried she's going to fall down and break her sternum. And that it's totally useless as armor, but it's important to her because she wants to feel empowered by using it, and it's something she thinks is good. And he cites Mass Effect as a pretty good example of sort of splitting the difference. It's realistic enough armor that you're fully covered. It's not elfin, you know, we basically cover the nipples, and therefore it's quote-unquote armor. It's armor, but it still gives you enough of that female form that you feel like you're sort of an empowered female chick shooting up bad guys.
Right.
You're not just like an androgynous sheet of metal with a gun. You know, you're not a turret.
Because really, male and female, once you get them armored up enough, everybody's gonna kind of look like Cerberus soldiers. Just this box with legs.
But I'm not sure I'd call them family.
The difference would be the females would have longer legs and shorter torsos. Which could you even tell in that armor?
Yeah,
I'm getting in here late, but can I just say that I think probably the most disturbing thing you could have done with the armor was just paint it flesh colored.
Just don't tell him I said so. Go to his head.
There's something just unsettling about that.
You bet.
And then paint a bikini on the outside of it.
Okay, so Cortez, who
I was even thinking about like
one of my I like him better than most of the new characters in this game.
Well, he is the new Joker. Right. I mean, he has to be good.
Yeah, basically.
Didn't see you there.
Oh, crying.
Recording from Ferris Field.
Yeah. Is that crying?
Only references to Mass Effect 2 in the game, also, that actually, is used well.
That was my husband.
Is that actually the only actual crying in the entire Mass Effect series?
No, they've got crying several times in this game, and I think in the first one, I remember the one. I mean, that was a powerful little side quest. It's like 5 minutes long, where you have to talk down somebody who's escaped from brutal human slavery, and is just absolutely a crazy person now, and can barely communicate or relate to others. And I think she cries at the end. If she doesn't, then the crying was completely sold by the voice actress. By the way, hats off to her. I realize we're an entire 2 games late to praising her, but whoever did that really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, you're right, but
note to self, put a link to that in the show note.
I've never felt as alone as I do right now.
Just making work for yourself.
Start thinking that way, we've already lost. But the thing is, you already have, guys. You pretty much already have, haven't you?
Yeah.
Spoiler warning!
But don't worry, Commander. When I'm in that pilot seat, I'm there 100%.
Cortez is
it's just the down.
I wish they had made him a more accessible character, because if you don't go down here, he is an anonymous guy.
If you don't go down to the bowels of the ship, you miss him like our buddy Seamus did.
It's not a hard mistake to make.
He's dressed like the generic people on the ship. That's one of the problems. If they gave him a unique outfit, then he would kind of stick out a bit.
Is this weird? All of Shepard's philosophy just kind of fall flat there? It's like, if you actually consider that stuff in the context of you are gonna fuck up...
Shepard doesn't have a philosophy.
But you did! Like, right there, you were like, sort of trying to console this guy, and what you were saying was actually completely banal and empty. Like, we all die alone. We're defined by what we do. What does that mean? Defined to who? Defined by what?
You're defined by what you do.
But, like, to who and in what context?
Oh, okay,
like,
so,
for instance, I shoot
so you
people
scan
all
enough,
day for
and you'll piss off the Reapers, and...
You didn't save, you didn't save, you didn't save, you didn't save, you didn't save.
It's an autosave. Fine, I'll
It
save.
does auto-save.
I want to show how dumb this is.
Well, you don't need to save now, you lived. You are the boy who lived.
No, I want to show off how silly this is when they run up to you. Hey, what's up, Reaper?
Yeah, the game over is a bit sort of abrupt. Like...
Critical mission failure!
Although, to be fair, the first game had that when you drove the Mako into lava. It's just sort of this abrupt game over, insert another quarter kind of script.
I like how it just sort of fades, like, both ships pause, like, as if it's awkward, like they're trying not to run into each other at the grocery store. It's kind of like, if you ever watch the two best friends play a Prison Break, sort of towards the end, how whenever there's a game over, it just sort of freezes.
Is this the Rachni mission?
Yes, this is the no, there's no Rachni here, Chris. What are you talking about? That's ridiculous.
We're spoiler warning. We ruin spoils. Keep that in.
Did you have to whisper that all creepy, Josh?
That wasn't me. That was Campster. What the hell are you talking about?